This subcommittee will come to order. This is fiscal year 2026 Legislative Branch Subcommittee Public Witness Day hearing. I'd like to thank Ranking Member Espaillat and committee members for being here today. A special thank you to our witnesses for being here today. We appreciate your interest in the legislative branch and for taking time out of your busy schedules to testify before this subcommittee. In addition to our witnesses here this morning, additional witnesses have submitted testimony for the record, and their statements may be found online. I would also like to note that this hearing serves as a vehicle for one of the member of Congress who submitted testimony for the record, and her statement can also be found online. I now recognize Ranking Member Espaillat for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to see so many outside public witnesses attending our hearing this morning. The subcommittee needs to hear the concerns of our constituencies and members of the public before us. We will provide that kind of input. We begin work on marking up our fiscal year 2026 subcommittee bill. It's great to see some familiar faces on our witness list. We have made progress over the years regarding many of your past requests to improve the operations of the Ledge Branch. Your presence today means we have a lot more work to do. I look forward to hearing your suggestions. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Espaillat. We will hear from our witnesses in our panels of 4. Each witness will deliver a short 3-minute summary of their written testimony. Their full testimony has been submitted for the record. Following the testimony of each member of the panel, I will call on members for any questions. I now recognize our first panel, and Mr. Alwan, you are now recognized for your 3 minutes.
Chairman Valadeo, Ranking Member Espaillat, members of the subcommittee, thank you for allowing me to testify. As you know, actual staff salaries they vary between offices and account for about 3/4 of a member's budget. But each member is provided the same amount. It's known as the clerk hire component of the MRAs. If we want to stop the revolving door that's draining institutional knowledge and undercuts legislative and constituent services, we have to align MRAs with real-world staffing costs. Before I retired from the House, I was asked to set all 441 bespoke member budgets in just 3 months for the incoming 111th Congress. It was then that I learned that the clerk hire was set as $944,000 back in 2010, and I couldn't find any kind of supporting analysis for where that number came from. It was marginally increased to $994,000 in 2020. I knew we could do better as an institution when it was my job to set those MRAs in 23, so I conducted a comprehensive salary analysis that categorized thousands of unique job titles into the typical roles found in a member office. I accounted for staff that wear multiple hats, and I also made sure that shared staff didn't skew the numbers downwards. This led to the first meaningful increase in the clerk hire in more than a decade, from $994,000 to $1.434 million for every single member office. Even with that increase, turnover in 2023 was still high, over 60% among ledge assistants and over 70% among ledge correspondents. Since salaries continue to rise with inflation and market demands, members are increasingly basically robbing Peter to pay Paul just to maintain competitive pay. They buy less supplies and equipment, they send less official mail, or worse, they hire less staff so that they can adequately pay the staff that they have. In February, I launched hillclimbers.org. It's an online platform that transforms House SOD data into salary and staffing insights for member offices. Our newest data shows that the average member office will spend more than $1.5 million this year on salaries and $1.55 million by 2026. I have 2 recommendations. First, I think we need to get the horse before the cart. In February, appropriators, they set the overall MRA budget, and they'll come up with a number. And then at the end of the year, CHA, whose job it is to set the individual MRAs, they have to reverse engineer all the individual MRAs to fit within that budget that was set in February. So, that process is not working. MRAs have been held flat since 2023 when I set all the MRAs for the last 2 years because of this process. I think that CHA and the appropriators should work closely together in February to figure out, using real data, which Hill Climbers can provide, to set an overall MRA budget that actually reflects the actual needs of members and the market demands. Then in October, CHA can set those individual MRAs, and when they do that, they'll line up with the number that was set in February if we do this correctly. I proved in 2023 that it's possible to use math, science, and data to build extremely accurate MRA budgets and not have to reverse engineer them from a number. Second, we need to improve the SOD data set. One of the first things we have to do, and Daniel Schumann agrees with me on this as well, is to add unique identifiers to the data set. We need to have a number that we can use to track people when they get married and change their last names, or in the data set there are mistakes with the names. We need to be able to know who that person is. Second, we need to also have a field that tells us whether they're permanent or non-permanent staff, so that we can figure out, according to the 18.4 framework, whether member offices are staffed to their potential or not. Staff salaries are essential for recruiting and training and retaining talented professionals, and thank you for your time. I look forward to your questions.
I appreciate that, Mr. Irwan. And now I recognize Mr. Shurek for his 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Jesse Sherrick. I'm a government affairs specialist with the National Federation of the Blind. I'm here to talk to you today about the National Library Service for the Blind and Print Disabled Talking Book Service. We're asking you as a membership to continue funding the National Library Service, Talking Book Service. It's a critical service needed by blind people across the country. There are some 8.3 estimated blind and low vision people across the country of all ages. And it's a critical service, and I'll describe briefly why it's a critical service. I was born blind, and as a young person, I became a talking book patron at 7 years old. So I've been a talking book patron for 39 years. Until that point, I always had to have somebody read to me, a family member or a friend, and I wasn't able to read on my own. But when I received talking book service, I was able to use the audiobooks and the Braille books, and it made a tremendous difference in my educational career, in my professional development, and it's a service that I still rely on heavily to this day. It's an extremely valuable service. Not only, I don't want to just tell you about my personal experience, but prior to working for the National Federation of the Blind, I was a blind skills instructor. So I taught adults who were losing eyesight. And one of the things they would often say to me is, I can't read anymore. You know, I used to love to read. This isn't something I can take part in anymore. And I would demonstrate a talking book player or a Braille e-reader and show them how to use the technology. And all of a sudden, they were able to read. It's a transformative moment in their life, and it helps blind people to be successful in school, be successful in their jobs, and be successful for our older adults who are retired. It helps them to, enjoy those golden years and gives so much hope back to people. So on behalf of the National Federation of the Blind, on behalf of the 8.3 blind and low vision Americans, we ask you to continue supporting the National Library Service and keep funding it at its current level. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now recognize Mr. Racky for his 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Valadeo, Ranking Member Espaillat, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony today in support of fiscal year 2026 and your ongoing support of efforts to build capacity in the legislative branch. My name is J.D. Racky. I'm a senior policy analyst with the Structural Democracy Project at the Bipartisan Policy Center. And relevant to today, I've also previously had the privilege of serving as professional staff with the House Select Committee on the Modernization of Congress. As both a political scientist and someone with experience as a staffer, I can confidently say that I know Congress can best execute its Article I responsibilities only when it adequately invests in its own capacity. The American people rightly demand efficiency and effectiveness from their government. However, it is important to remember that efficiency can be gained both from reducing spending and through strategic investment. That is why I'm requesting that funding for the House Modernization Initiatives account be appropriated at the $10 million level, which is a return to the level allocated in FY24 and the bill version of FY25 that was approved by this subcommittee prior to the CR. I also request the inclusion of report language that would create reporting requirements for entities receiving funds from the account. We know that MIA has a track record of success, helping launch programs such as Deconflict and HouseCal, Case Compass, and a comprehensive legislative drafting study, among many others. While knowledge of the good work funded by this account exists among members and staff and close observers of the institution, the public accounting of this fund is kind of scattered across a handful of reports and testimony before this subcommittee and the Committee on House Administration. To my knowledge, there's no one location that details which projects have benefited from MIA funds or the current status of those projects. Requiring the generation of more standardized reporting requirements for MIA funds will help increase accountability and inform future modernizers about successful approaches used by current modernization efforts. On a related note, additional BPC testimony submitted by former Senators Heitkamp and Martinez makes clear that Congress must do more to respond to the Supreme Court's Loper-Bright decision and the ending of Chevron deference. MIA funds can help get the ball rolling by funding improvements to the flag track program, development of a tour tracking program, and in particular, the expansion of the newly developed committee portal. Again, thank you for your work on these important issues and for the opportunity to provide public testimony, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Radke, and I now recognize Mr. Schuman for his 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Valadeo, Ranking Member Espaillat, Representative Moore. It's good to be testifying before you, and thank you so much for having the public come in and testify before this committee. I'm excited to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Daniel Schuman, and I'm the Executive Director of the American Governance Institute, and today I want to talk about improving congressional access to reports from federal agencies. Over the years, Congress has directed federal agencies to provide thousands of reports to Congress, but it's not always possible to find these reports. To keep track, for 203 years, the House has asked the clerk to maintain a list. I brought a prop. I hope you don't mind. This is the list of the reports that are due to Congress each year. This is the list of the reports that are due to the House and to the Senate. It's 412 pages long. I did not count how many reports are actually in here, but there's a bunch. And a couple years ago, the Congress passed legislation for all the reports that the agencies are submitting to be made available to GPO. So GPO is maintaining an archive of them all. This all sounds good and fine, right? The problem is that this voluminous list only includes the reports that are due to the House and due to the Senate, but not the reports that are due to the committees and the subcommittees. And the agencies are not providing all the reports to Congress that they're supposed to provide. We don't know which ones are missing because we don't have a list of all of them. I spoke with the clerk's office. The clerk's office would be more than happy to update this list to include reports that are due to the House and the Senate, as well as its committees and subcommittees, but they have a resource problem. They can't afford to generate the list that's to include those due to committees and subcommittees. They said that they would need 2 additional executive communication clerks. That's about $350,000 to go and make sure that you have a list that's due to the committees and subcommittees as well as to the House and to the Senate. Because right now on GPO's website, despite this gigantic document, there are only 716 reports posted there. So presumably, there's a bunch missing. If GPO can check the list of what they receive against the list that's required, then you can go and follow up with the agencies to find out the ones that are missing and make sure that they're providing it. You can either pay 2 people to go and comb through all the laws and find this stuff, or maybe technology can help do this. Last year, you all directed the clerk to make recommendations to you about how to solve this problem. My request this year is to go ahead and direct the clerk now to solve the problem. Appropriate $350,000. Fortunately, this is not that much comparison to, say, what the Capitol Police were asking for just the other day. $350,000 to either update this list or to build an AI tool or some other tool to track it. This would make it possible, easier for you all to do oversight over the agencies. It would make it easier for the public to find this information. And it would solve a problem that Congress has been trying to solve since 1822, which is to find all the reports that are due to Congress so you can actually read the reports, figure out which ones are unnecessary and get rid of those, and make better decisions about the things that you're trying to do. This committee has long been supportive of improving and making the legislative branch more capable. This is another small step in that direction. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Schuman. I'd like to see if any of my colleagues would like to be recognized to ask a question of the first panel. All right. Well, I'd like to thank the panel for your time today and for your comments. And I think we'll start with you guys are excused, and we'll start with the second panel. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys all appearing here today, and I'd like to start with I'd like to recognize Mr. Lips to provide his 3-minute summary of his testimony.
Hi, my name is Dan Lips. I'm a senior fellow with the Foundation for American Innovation. I respectfully request the subcommittee include report language aimed at increasing the Government Accountability Office's return on investment and impact. As you heard from the Comptroller General this morning, GAO has an impressive track record, delivering a return of $123 for every dollar provided by Congress over the past 6 years. All Americans should be grateful for the hard work of Congress's watchdog agency. But the subcommittee should ask, how can Congress further increase GAO's return on investment? Over the past 3 years, GAO's ROI has averaged just 78 to 1, well below that 6-year average. Today, more than 5,200 GAO recommendations remain open, and last year, GAO reported that agencies had failed to implement 30% of recommendations made 4 years ago. Congress could save hundreds of billions of dollars by enacting GAO's nonpartisan recommendations in a timely manner. This subcommittee has already taken important steps, including requiring quarterly reports on improper payments, public estimates of potential savings associated with open recommendations, and directing GAO to attach deadlines or timeframes to new recommendations, all to increase ROI. Each of these steps is valuable, and I encourage you to continue requiring these reports in FY 2026. In addition, I respectfully recommend 2 new reporting requirements. First, require the Congressional Budget Office to issue a report estimating the potential budgetary effects of implementing open GAO recommendations. Former CBO Director Keith Hall has explained that such a report would provide, quote, a useful measure of preventable waste, helping Congress increase pressure on agencies and improving GAO's ROI. Second, direct GAO to use artificial intelligence to review federal regulations and identify outdated language. Last year, Congress enacted a bipartisan law, the GAO Database Modernization Act, which requires GAO to track outdated rules that are identified and eliminated by federal agencies. Now, Congress can increase GAO's role in conducting regulatory oversight, including by leveraging technology. The state of Ohio successfully used AI combined with human oversight to streamline its code, eliminating nearly 5 million words, or 1/3 of its regulatory text. GAO could provide nonpartisan analysis to inform a similar regulatory cleanup effort for the federal government. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Mr. Lips. And now I recognize Mr. Townsend for his 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Valadeo, Ranking Member Espaillat, and Vice Chair Moore. I'm Jim Townsend, and I'm Director of the Carl Levin Center for Oversight and Democracy at Wayne State University Law School, and I really want to express my appreciation for the opportunity to testify to you today about how we can strengthen the first branch of government through improving its tools for conducting oversight, bipartisan oversight in particular. So I'm going to mention 3 items that are in a letter that I sent to you along with my colleague at the Project on Government Oversight. There were 9 items in that, but in the interest of time, I'm going to focus on 3 items that we think are particularly important for strengthening oversight. Those 3 items are bipartisan websites, bipartisan reports, and hiring administrative staff on a bipartisan basis. So before I get to those, I just want to say a word about the Levin Center. We are an institute founded by Senator Carl Levin upon his retirement from the U.S. Senate back about 10 years ago now in 2015. Senator Levin was known for his bipartisan work, his alliances he built across the aisle to do oversight, to really get into the specifics and to dig into the problems that are facing the American people. Our sort of guiding light and principle is that when you're conducting oversight, you are acting as the eyes and voice of the American people. And those words, eyes and voice, don't come from us. They come from the Supreme Court in a seminal ruling over 70 years ago on the power of Congress to subpoena information. So in that spirit, I just want to mention these three priorities. The first one is bipartisan websites. Websites right now in the Senate are formed on a bipartisan base, but in the House, oftentimes we have Democratic websites and Republican websites. And this is a problem on several fronts. First, it's a waste of resources. Having duplicate websites is obviously twice what, you're incurring more costs than you need to. Secondly, it really encourages partisanship in fact-finding. And that's really the opposite of what you're charged with doing in being the eyes and voice of the people. Really good oversight and fact-finding work is done on a bipartisan basis because you get a greater breadth of information, you get viewpoints coming from different sides, all in pursuit of the facts and trying to reach some consensus on how to move forward. So the other problem with having separate partisan websites is a lot of times documents created by the committee are lost when partisan control flips in the chamber. The last two items I want to mention, though, are bipartisan reports, which, again, same problem. When you're issuing minority and majority reports, it's much more difficult for the public to understand actually where you stand because they've got to read two different reports to get that information. And finally, administrative staff. The functions of administrative personnel are really not partisan in nature. Issuing subpoenas, dealing with all the paperwork that has to be done to conduct oversight, to log the information that's gathered. All this is not really a partisan concern. And so we really think it would be a much better practice, and again, a much more cost-effective practice if this could be conducted on a bipartisan basis and administrative personnel were bipartisan. So again, thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to any of your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Townsend. I now recognize Mr. Stern for his 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member, Mr. Vice Chairman, thank you very much for this opportunity to testify. My name is Mike Stern. I've had several roles on the Hill, but most relevantly to my current testimony, I spent 8 years in the House General Counsel's office from 1996 to 2004. Today, I would like to talk to you about the need for some greater transparency in the House's legal functions, specifically the public-facing website of the House General Counsel. Today, the General Counsel's office has a public website with some very basic information about its functions and some filings from the last 2 years. That's about it that it has. Moreover, it reports to the Bipartisan Legal Advisory Group, which is responsible for advising the Speaker with regard to the functioning of the House Counsel's office and for articulating the institutional position of the House in litigation. But BLAG, as it's known, has no website, and there's virtually no information at all about it in any official House source. This lack of transparency is concerning because it's in the House's institutional interest for the public to have more information about its legal positions and how they are formulated. Today, a member of the public or a legal scholar would find it very difficult to find what the House's position is on important legal controversies. In contrast, the Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel has a website with hundreds of opinions on executive power, all of which are wrong. No, that's a joke. But it does create a great imbalance between the branches in terms of things like oversight and separation of powers issues. So I'll give you one recent example of an OLC opinion which threatens congressional oversight prerogatives. Last year, the OLC issued an opinion finding that a subpoena from the House Foreign Relations Committee to Secretary of State Anthony Blinken was invalid because, well, Secretary Blinken apparently had something on his schedule that conflicted with the date that the committee wanted him to testify. The idea that congressional subpoenas are invalid just because the executive branch thinks it has something better to do is a novel and dangerous idea. In fact, no less an authority than Paul Coburn, a longstanding veteran, recently retired of OLC, has publicly expressed concerns about the threat this opinion poses to congressional oversight. Now, I know there's not a lot we can do to solve this problem today, but we can take a small step in that direction by improving the House General Counsel's public-facing website. And the place to start would be to take the information that's behind the For Congressional Offices tab that is not available to the public. And I believe there's a lot of information there that would be able to be moved to the public side without violating any confidentiality. So I'll stop there and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. I now recognize Ms. Stewart for her 3 minutes.
Chair Valadeo, Ranking Member Espiat, and Vice Chair Moore, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm Danielle Stewart, former House Chief of Staff and Modernization Staffer, now serving with the Bipartisan Pop Fox Foundation. Our team of former legislative branch staffers and public servants works to strengthen congressional capacity while ensuring the responsible use of taxpayer funds. Today, I'd like to highlight 3 priority items for the committee's consideration. First, we recommend a feasibility study within the CAO to establish a House Casework Support Office. Congressional offices are facing unprecedented surges in constituent requests for help with federal agencies, some seeing double or triple-digit increases. Through our Casework Navigator program, which provides training, resource sharing, and a regular newsletter to support caseworkers, we've heard firsthand how this increases straining staff and office resources. A centralized office could collect and share up-to-date agency contacts and best practices, serve as a clearinghouse for policy changes, provide referrals to existing CAO services, and build tools to identify systemic agency issues. This would be a natural extension of successful staff development initiatives like the CAO's Coach Program and the House HR Hub. A feasibility study would be a logical next step. Second, our team supports further exploration of remote voting technology in the House. This effort is not about excusing absences. It's about ensuring continuity of operations during emergencies or when in-person gatherings become impossible. Other major legislatures, including Canada and the UK, have implemented secure remote voting options for their members. As national security threats evolve, Congress must maintain its ability to vote and exercise its Article I responsibilities, even if members cannot physically convene in the Capitol. Finally, we recommend in-house development of AI training resources for members and staff. With network traffic data suggesting that a quarter of House staff regularly use AI, there's an urgent need for institutional guidance. An optional in-house curriculum through the Congressional Staff Academy could provide courses on ethical AI usage, ensure all offices have access to practical guidance, and offer sandbox sessions for safe experimentation with these tools. In recent years, the House has made important strides in modernization and staff support. These 3 initiatives, casework support, remote voting capability, and AI training, would further enhance congressional operations and responsiveness to constituents and keep the legislative branch competitive in a rapidly evolving society. Thank you for your consideration. The Pop Fox Foundation stands ready to provide any additional information or support.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. See if any of my colleagues here have any questions for this panel. Well, you're excused, and thank you for your time today. I'd like to ask the third panel to come up. Mr. Hart, and I recognize you for your 3 minutes.
Thank you to the subcommittee for the opportunity to testify today. And thank you also to the staff for coordinating with all of the witnesses. Very much appreciate the opportunity to be with you. I'm Nick Hart, President and CEO of the Data Foundation. We're a national nonprofit that advocates for open data and evidence-informed policy and decision-making. I'm here today representing our community, which includes our Data Coalition members and many, many partners who support responsible data access, effective data governance, and meaningful data transparency across the whole of government, including the legislative branch. And I want to recognize also that many of the witnesses today have also acknowledged these issues in their commentary. I urge Congress strongly to create and establish a chief data officer function within the legislative branch as part of the current appropriations process. Back in 2018, Congress passed legislation requiring executive branch agencies to do so as part of the Open Government Data Act, and that was signed by President Trump at the time. Congress should apply these same principles here in the legislative branch under Article 1. It's a low-cost mechanism that helps ensure Congress has the information it needs to effectively and efficiently legislate, and it's a way of focusing on the data on the systems, not just the systems themselves. It's not about creating more bureaucracy or not even a way of criticizing the excellent expertise of the congressional staff today, but a way to ensure that Congress has access and availability of the information that it needs and can coordinate across the entirety of the congressional enterprise when it comes to data. The current lack of this enterprise-wide data governance strategy creates some real problems, and I think some of those have even been acknowledged today so far. When developing legislation, congressional offices repeatedly request the same information and analyses, creating some duplication, even some delays. During the appropriations process, offices may struggle to analyze the immense volume of data, including performance information provided by agencies to the legislative branch. And other offices may not even be aware of some of that performance information that comes in about outputs, efficiency measures, and eventually the outcomes. A congressional CDO can help coordinate this existing data function without replacing a lot of the great work that's already happening, highlighting a couple of the key benefits that we see. Developing a data catalog, a way of knowing what data exists across the institution of Congress. Establishing protocols for appropriate and responsible, effective executive legislative data sharing while respecting constitutional principles. Enabling new privacy-preserving technologies that are becoming very common in many parts of government today that help us protect sensitive information, supporting implementation of new laws from the last Congress like the CBO Data Sharing Act, and even creating machine-readable formats. We think this is a modest investment in that leads to some substantial returns that are not just symbolic, not just cultural, but lead to action. Our research shows that quality data systems pay for themselves through improved services and reduced waste. Strongly encourage Congress to establish an enterprise-wide chief data officer, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Now I recognize Mr. McGrath for his 3 minutes.
Chairman Veo, Ranking Member Espaillat, and Vice Chairman Moore, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Antoine McGrath, and I'm the creator of CRSreports.com, a public website which I built and maintained starting in 2015 with help from like-minded friends with the sole purpose of making Congressional Research Service reports more accessible to the public. We had no institutional support or outside funding, just a shared belief that these taxpayer-funded materials should be freely available to the people who paid for them. CRSreports.com made reports available to the public before any official site existed. Our work was later subsumed by every CRSreports.com run by Daniel Schuman and the support of Demand Progress. Together, we showed that publishing CRS reports could be done quickly and efficiently. Since then, Congress has passed the Equal Access to Congressional Research Service Act, which requires public access to non-confidential CRS reports and fundings for that effort. The public portal to CRS reports hosted by Congress has done well and has informed the public of complex issues before Congress, but their work is not done. CRS has not released historical reports, tens of thousands of them, which remain locked away in the internal system known as CRSX. As a result, unofficial repositories, such as the ones that I created, serve more reports than CRS does itself. Congress can use its authority to again direct CRS and the Library of Congress This time to work with GPO to release CRS reports to the public, with specific note that this includes historical unclassified reports. Public access to these in PDF format would suffice. This effort has been approved and funded by Congress. Providing clarity around historical CRS reports is a high-impact step that fulfills the spirit of the law and benefits Congress, researchers, and the public. I respectfully urge the subcommittee to act. Thank you again for your time.
Appreciate your comments, Mr. McGrath. Any questions from my colleagues up here? You guys are excused. Thank you very much for your time. All right. If there are no further questions, I'd like to thank all of our witnesses for being here today. Members may submit additional questions for the record, and the committee now stands adjourned. Yes.